In Staten Island, student Venus checks her email and discovers that she has been accepted into CalArts for photography. She starts to reply but hesitates, unsure whether to accept because she doesn't want to leave her mother alone at this time. A notification shows her crush JP tagged her in a photo she took. She likes it back. Then Venus receives a video call from her friend Sydney, and they talk about various topics. Sydney mentions a new online game called Nerve that's gaining popularity. Venus watches a video about it where a robotic voice explains people must complete strange challenges to earn money. Users can choose to be an anonymous watcher or a player. Sydney loves it, but Venus finds it suspicious. Later, Venus goes to the kitchen and discusses college with her mother Nancy. Nancy doesn't know Venus applied to CArts. She thinks Venus will study in Staten Island, and they can still live together. Venus suggests renting out her deceased brother's room, but Nancy refuses, not yet over the loss. Later, Venus goes to the students' football game to take photos for the school newspaper. Sydney asks someone to film it for Nerve before meeting her cheerleader friends. The team starts their routine as usual, but Sydney surprises everyone at the end by mooning them. It turns out to be a Nerve challenge, and she got paid for it. Soon, teenagers nationwide are doing truly stupid things to earn money, like eating dog food, grabbing a police car while skateboarding, and cliff diving. After the game, Venus and her friends go to a fast food restaurant, sparking a discussion about the game's morality. Sydney accuses Venus of never stepping out of her comfort zone and being just a spectator in real life. When Venus protests, Sydney challenges her to ask JP out. Venus declines, so Sydney decides to tell JP that Venus likes him. Unfortunately, JP explains Venus isn't his type. Heartbroken, Venus runs out of the restaurant, screaming as she rides her bike. Text messages from friends only worsen her mood. Back home, desperate to prove herself, Venus decides to sign up for Nerve as a player. The robotic voice starts explaining the rules. The top 2 players with the most viewers go to the finals. All challenges must be filmed to be approved. A player is eliminated if they fail or quit, and the last one standing wins. The game asks for her fingerprint and automatically creates her profile using all her private information from the internet, including favorite books and banking details. Her first challenge is to kiss a stranger in a restaurant for 100. Venus calls her friend Tommy for a ride. Tommy warns her that some kids have died because of Nerve, but Venus doesn't believe it because the game would have been shut down. Using his knowledge of the deep web, Tommy explains that the game cannot be stopped because everyone who logs in becomes a new server. Venus takes a long time to decide whom to focus on, and her phone reminds her that she has a time limit. In the end, she chooses a guy named Ian because he's reading her favorite book. Venus starts talking about the book to get Ian's attention and interrupts herself to suddenly kiss him. While Tommy records, she mentally counts the seconds, and when she's done, she returns to Tommy to confirm she's received the money. Then, music starts playing in the restaurant, and Ian sings along, dancing on the chairs while looking at Venus. She thinks he's singing to her, but Tommy clarifies that this is also a challenge. Ian gets his money and joins the duo. Afterwards, Ian explains that someone gave him the book as part of a challenge. At that moment, Ian and Venus receive a new message challenging them to go to the city together for 200. Venus declines, saying she just wanted to have fun with the challenge, and Tommy supports her decision. Ian continues explaining that Venus does things because her friends tell her to, and he leaves, leaving Venus hurt. She follows Ian to the parking lot and warns him that she's not the type to accept challenges, but he insists she goes with him. The pair gets on Ian's bike and crosses the bridge to reach the city, recording everything. Meanwhile, Sydney is hanging out with friends and doing another challenge involving pretending to fart on people using an app. She's gaining a lot of fans for this, but her mood drops a bit when she realizes Venus has joined the game and is quickly gaining viewers too. When the ride ends, Venus and Ian part ways to pursue their new challenges. Her next challenge is to try on a dress from a very fancy store. As she enters the store, Nancy receives notifications because the joint account is receiving money on behalf of Venus. She tries to call her daughter, but Venus ignores her and finds the dress. She nearly takes the dress off the mannequin, but a saleswoman comes and gives her another copy. Venus rushes to the fitting room and records herself putting on the dress, completing the challenge on time. Then, she looks at herself in the mirror, liking what she sees. At that moment, she is found by Ian, who also received a challenge to try on clothes while recording for his fans. Tommy is still concerned about Venus's safety and signs up for Nerve as a viewer to keep an eye on her. Ian and Venus decide to have fun finishing their outfits with shoes, and while they're distracted, another player steals their clothes from the fitting rooms for another challenge. Soon, Venus and Ian realize their clothes are missing, and at the same time receive a 500 challenge to leave the store. The clothes are too expensive for their budget, so they decide to leave them behind and discreetly exit in their underwear. At first, nobody sees them, but eventually they are discovered and have no choice but to run to the exit while everyone watches. As they gain many fans on Ian's bike, they find a bag with the fancy clothes and receipts, so they can keep it without guilt, thanks to one of the viewers. While heading to the next challenge location, Sydney calls Tommy to inquire about Venus's intentions and freaks out when she realizes Venus is now in the top 10 most popular. Shortly after, Ian and Venus arrive at a tattoo studio where Venus is supposed to get a tattoo chosen by Ian. He looks at various designs and doesn't like any of them, so he decides to draw one himself and asks the tattoo artist to correct it. Venus sits in the chair, and while enduring the needle, her follower count continues to grow to distract her from the pain. Ian plays a song she likes and listens to the story of her deceased brother. When the tattoo is finished, Venus looks in the mirror and is pleasantly surprised to discover a lighthouse, similar to the title of her favorite book. Meanwhile, at a party, Sydney notices that Venus keeps gaining fans, and her envy grows. Tommy is watching all of this and finally loses patience. He calls a hacker friend for more information about Ian because he doesn't appear on any public sites. His friend sends an access key to enter the deep web, and Tommy discovers that Ian has played the game before and was involved in an incident that killed a player. Terrified, Tommy calls Venus to warn her, but she doesn't pick up. Back to Ian and Venus, they receive a new challenge asking Ian to blindfoldedly drive the bike at 60 miles per hour through New York, and Venus must give the correct directions. Venus initially refuses, but at that moment, Ty shows up to take a picture of her with a car sticker. After he leaves, he convinces Venus to accept the challenge. Once they accept, a girl at the party puts it on TV for everyone to watch. Ian covers his helmet with the sticker, and they take off. When Venus confirms the light is green, her directions are somewhat clumsy, and they come dangerously close to another car, so Venus has to regain control with a mixture of leaning into him and words. Venus guides Ian through the streets as he speeds up, narrowly avoiding a red light. But Venus makes Ian accelerate, and they cross just in time. After passing through a tunnel, they finally finish the countdown, and Ian unblocks his vision to stop the bike just before hitting a gate. Afterwards, the duo celebrates with a kiss. At the party, Sydney is incredibly jealous and asks her viewers to give her a better challenge. At that moment, she is approached by Ty, who asks to form a team. Sydney declines, and Ty gives her his number before leaving. Meanwhile, Nancy calls Tommy wondering if their account is being hacked because they keep receiving money from anonymous donors. Tommy fabricates a story about Venus playing online poker and making a lot of money from it to appease Nancy. Returning to the duo, they enjoy themselves on a carousel while discussing their family situations. This is being recorded, and the jealous Sydney tries to call Venus, who doesn't answer. Ian asks her why, and Venus begins to explain how Sydney always belittles her and uses her to feel better about her own insecurities. This embarrasses Sydney in front of everyone, and now her viewers are rallying to come up with a dangerous challenge for her. At the party, two guys show up with a ladder, and Sydney receives a new challenge. She must use the ladder to walk from one building to another. She's drunk and dizzy, but decides to try anyway. Sydney takes the first step somewhat clumsily and falls on her hands and knees. To make matters easier, while everyone films, she must be the one filming for the challenge to count. She then gets up again to retrieve the phone from her pocket. Everyone continues shouting advice, which makes her more nervous and causes her to drop the phone on the ground. Nerve immediately announces that Sydney has failed the challenge and is out of the game. Across the country, people also fail in very dangerous challenges, like missing a jump over train platforms and getting caught in a fire. Ty ends up on the train tracks and stands in the middle, letting a train pass over him without getting hurt. His challenge is completed, and now he's in first place. As more people fail, only a few players remain. Soon, Ian and Venus arrive at the party and are greeted like celebrities. When Venus hears that Sydney lost, she goes to check on her and finds her misbehaving with JP. This triggers an argument as the two start insulting each other for their betrayals. Sydney even makes a joke about Venus's deceased brother, crossing the line. At that moment, Venus receives a challenge asking her to complete Sydney's failed challenge for $15,000. Eager for revenge, Venus immediately accepts and heads to the ladder. Venus is much less clumsy than Sydney, and needing few breaks, she quickly walks on the ladder and reaches the neighboring building, while everyone celebrates. Nerve announces that Venus is in first place. Later, Tommy finds her and tells her that her fight with Sydney was staged by Ian because that's his challenge. Furious, Venus runs out of the party and Ian follows her. People keep filming, so Ian drags her into the elevator and explains that it's more complicated than it seems, but he can't explain further right now. Venus doesn't believe him and is tired of the risks. So, she runs out of the building and finds a police officer to explain the game to him. The officer doesn't see any crime being committed, and nearby spectators start calling her a snitch. At the same time, Nancy discovers her bank account has been emptied. She calls Venus, who panics because Ian has just left on his bike. At that moment, Ty appears and apologizes before punching Venus, knocking her unconscious for his challenge. Moments later, Venus wakes up in a warehouse where some lights reveal the phrase, "Snitches get stitches," and a computer screen. A robotic voice explains that Venus is now their prisoner for breaking the rules. They control her life and her family's, proving it by showing various important documents on the screen. The only way out of the game now is to win the final round, for which she must catch the ferry to Staten Island. She kicks the unit door open to escape, hiding when she sees someone nearby. Suddenly, Ian appears in front of her and finally explains everything. Ian and Ty played Nerve last year in Seattle, and one of their friends died trying to climb a crane. They immediately went to the police, but no one took them seriously, calling it an accident. Nerve punished them for breaking the rules, and their families' lives were ruined. They messed with Ian's dad's job, leaked photos of his sister online, and stole their identities at a hidden level. Following a viewer and player called Prisoner, both Ty and Ian are trapped in it. The only way out of the game is to win the final, and now Venus is in the same situation. Ian explains that he made a deal with the viewers, and they deliberately gave him a tough challenge to push Ty into third place. This way, Ian and Venus can go to the final, and Ian can let her win. Venus isn't fond of the idea, but lets Ian go to his challenge while she calls Tommy for help. He's with Sydney, who heard the truth and agrees to meet up too. The girls hug and apologize when they meet before discussing the situation. Venus wants to go to the final but also wants to destroy the game. So she asks Tommy to change the nerve code and reveal all the spectators' identities. She also sends Sydney on a secret mission as part of the plan. Meanwhile, Ian is repeating the challenge that caused them to lose last time. He goes to the roof of a very tall building and hangs from a crane for 5 seconds with only one hand while a drone records him. He's terrified but manages to do it, even flipping off the camera at the end. Now, he's in the final. After Sydney finishes her part of the plan, she goes with Tommy to meet his hacker friends who are already working to hack the open-source nerve code. At the same time, Nancy finally finds out about the game and calls Tommy, who invites her to join them at the hacker's hideout for an explanation. Venus catches the ferry, and someone leaves a paper bag for her. Ian encounters masked spectators on the train taking him to the next destination. Eventually, Venus arrives at a stadium, and the security asks for a ticket. Then, she reveals the gun from the bag as thousands of people log in to watch the final challenge. Venus enters and notices many anonymous spectators wearing masks. Ian arrives shortly after. Their final challenge is to shoot each other. Whoever shoots first wins the game, and they have only 20 seconds. The hackers need to hurry and encourage Venus to shoot. She shoots but misses. Then, no one wins, and everyone insults. Venus tries to leave, but a spectator shoots in the air to stop her. The spectator removes the mask and reveals it's Ty, who offers to shoot Ian while the crowd applauds. Venus rushes to stand between them and calls the spectators cowards for hiding behind masks and screen names, finding courage only in groups. Ty ignores her words, so Venus challenges him to shoot while seeking approval from the crowd. A poll appears on their phones, and everyone votes for Ty to shoot Venus. He proceeds to do just that. Ian screams and holds Venus's falling body. At that moment, the hackers finally finish their work, and everyone's real names appear on the phones, with a message saying they're accomplices to murder. Terrified, people across the country start disconnecting and leaving the stadium, leaving not a single server connected for Nerve to exist. A furious Ian tries to shoot Ty, but suddenly Venus wakes up and stops him. It turns out calling Ty was part of Sydney's plan, and his gun had blanks all along. Venus's blood is fake. Ty and Ian can finally reconcile. In the hideout, everyone celebrates, and the hackers even recover Nancy's money. After leaving the stadium, Jan admits that his real name is Jan, and the couple kisses. Sometime later, Venus is happily attending Sea Arts and dating Ian while maintaining a healthier friendship with Tommy and Sydney. Thus ends Nerve, a game without rules, a thriller film and adventure from 2016.